fellow cyborgs, and welcome to another video by me. I don't have an intro for this because it's no longer a 0x19 update, so I don't really know what my mouth is doing. I kind of just wanted to keep you updated on what I've been reading and not do like huge wrap-ups, so today I'm going to talk to you about the first 5 books that I have finished in 2019. The first book I finished was An Old-Fashioned Girl by Louisa May Alcott. This I read with a friend and I read it on my Kindle, so you get to see the pretty picture. Or maybe not so pretty, I can't remember if this had a good cover or not. So this is a story about Polly, who comes to stay with the Shaw family over a winter and kind of figures out that even though they have a lot more money than her, they certainly don't have a lot more happiness than her. Through her influence, the Shaws slowly become better people, and this is a small, quaint little story. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. I did not enjoy it nearly as much as Little Women, and I think the 2 main reasons why boil down to the fact that Little Women doesn't center around Christmas, but I think there are 3 Christmas scenes and seasons that this book specifically highlights. An Old-Fashioned Girl has none, and I feel like that little Christmassy tidbit really added a lot to my enjoyment of Little Women. The other reason is that Little Women is about the 4 sisters learning how to grow up and the people they want to be, and learning lessons not only from Marmee, their mother, an adult, but also between the 4 of them. They're kind of at the same time figuring out how to do things and what to do when mistakes happen. In An Old-Fashioned Girl, it's more like Polly is this angelic little child born with the perfect morals, sent down from heaven to teach the Shaws, both young and old, how to be better people. I guess the other kind of stickler is her lessons don't work all that well. So for me, I didn't understand what the point of An Old-Fashioned Girl was, and the kind of ideas that I thought that the point of the story was. I came up with like 3 that I'm not going to share because it contains spoilers. All 3 of those like theses I felt did not work, that Alcott failed if those were her messages. So I don't 100% understand this story, but it was well written and adorable and a small, quiet little story. And if you are interested in Alcott, I do not think this is a bad example of her work at all. Not that I'm an Alcott expert. Then I have been accidentally getting into the Peter Grant series by Ben Aronovich. This is a urban fantasy, mystery, almost horror at times series. I think that's pretty beloved by the SFF community. My mother started reading the first book, which in America is ridiculously called Midnight Riot, and she said that she thought I would enjoy it, so I got the audiobook and powered through listening to that in order to chat with her about it. She has kind of fallen in love with the series and has since read Moon Over Soho, the second book. I also read this on audiobook in order to talk with her about it. She has also beat me and has read the 3rd book, but I have not gotten to that one yet. So let's dial back to Midnight Riot. This follows Peter Grant, who is a police constable. I do not and never will understand and use correctly the terminology of non-American police departments. My apologies. So he's like a foot cop and he's at this crime scene and starts talking to a witness and then realizes that this witness is a ghost. The world of magic is opened up to him and he ends up joining the Folly, which is the London Police Department's small, minuscule, magical issue department, and it's a number of 1. Now Peter makes it 2. The first book's mystery has to do with a serial killer whose magic causes people to commit violent crimes against the people around them and also destroys their faces in the process. I quite enjoyed the first book. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I'm pretty stiff with my ratings as far as mysteries because they normally don't pitter-patter toward my heartstrings, so a 3 stars is super solid from me. I really liked Peter's voice. I can't decide if he's a bit of a jerk, but he seems at least to be self-aware of his toolish nature as a young man. He's funny. I really enjoyed the magic system, and I was surprised at how grisly some scenes could get, and that makes me kind of lump this into a little bit tipping toe on horror. I'm really impressed with how Aronovich is able to blend the mystery with the urban fantasy with the horror genre seamlessly in these books. Book number 2, Moon Over Soho, however, was not as successful for me. I still gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I don't think that it dipped down into the 2 range, but this is certainly much lower on my enjoyment scale. To me, it felt like Aronovich for some reason decided that the Peter Grant series needed to be sexier. So he decided to have like 3 sex scenes that didn't really have to do with the plot very much. And then the murders were also kind of sexually horrific as well. It felt to me like the author just thought his books needed to be sexier, not because this is where it needed to go. And it also went quite dark places that I thought perhaps would have been better suited for later in the series. But if the series just gets darker from here, I don't know what's gonna happen. So those are 2 audiobooks that I finished in this first couple weeks of January, and let's move on to some physical books. I finished my first nonfiction of the year, which is The Devil's Teeth by Susan Casey, a true story of obsession and survival among America's great white sharks, and also birds, because this is not just a book about great white sharks, which is totally fine. So this is a book about the Farallon Islands, which are off the coast of San Francisco, and a lot of people don't know about them, myself included, had I not read The Lightkeepers by Abby Genai, which is also set on the Farallon Islands, and got me interested in this kind of niche ecosystem. So the Farallon Islands are populated by seabirds. There are thousands and thousands of them. It's poopy and eggy and seagulls pecking at your face sort of environment. The actual environment is very hostile. There's no place for a boat to dock. You have to go onto the islands by like a pulley system. Either the entire small boat is pulled up through rigging up to the rocky surface, or you are put in this little like net and pulled up yourself. So it's a very, like I said, hostile sort of environment. And then apart from the poop covered sheer rock face cliffs, rocks that also kind of crumble, you also have waters that are full of huge alpha adult great white sharks, like 20-foot long girth of a school bus great white sharks. So this follows Susan Casey as she becomes enamored and obsessed with the Farallon Islands and is able to wrangle day passes and weekend passes to be on the islands because they are a protected sanctuary and you need permission from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife agency in order to actually step foot on the rocks. My favorite parts were kind of the overall information about the Farallon Islands, the history of the islands, what the waters are like around the islands, how many shipwrecks are just rusting down next to the Farallon Islands, the attempts for different marine institutes and aquariums to exhibit great white sharks. Yikes. And a little bit more about the great white sharks as well. Like I said, this is also about seabirds. There's a section that talks about the birding season and the sorts of birds that are found here and the sorts of behaviors of these birds. There's also a good portion of this that's memoir where she details her like firsthand experiences on the islands, and especially when she ends up camping out on a boat docked right off the shore of the islands, and it's kind of a shit show. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I really loved the beginning. Some of the more memoir parts kind of lagged for me, and I enjoyed the more like informational third person sort of sections, but this made me so much more interested in learning about our oceans, even though they kind of freak me out a little bit. And I thought that this was a fast-paced, informative, and really wonderful nonfiction. So if any of the things that I've been talking about sound good to you, you need to pick this up ASAP because it's really darn good. And the final book I'm going to talk to you about is Bronte Binge Project. This is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, which I read for the 3rd time in the first couple weeks of January. I am going to make a follow-up video in the Bronte Binge series going over my thoughts of Wuthering Heights, minor spoilers but not huge ones. If you want to hear my thoughts on Wuthering Heights, check out that follow-up video. It should be posted at the same time as this one. So those were the first couple of books that I've read in January of 2019. I am pretty excited about those 2 4 stars because I did rate Wuthering Heights 4 stars, and I am also right now reading a bunch of books that I'm excited, so I'm Feeling really good about this year so far. Please let me know in the comments down below if you've had a pretty good start to your 2019, or let me know your most anticipated read of 2019, and are you saving it for a special time of year, or are you ready to get on that thing ASAP? Thank you for watching, and until next time, continue to be lovely.